Okay, so what the dashboard is our solution to the dealer portal, and it's going to allow you to be able to maintain and maintenance those recorders and cameras out in the field, which ultimately gives you another RMR opportunity. Since we've discussed the dashboard on previous RMR opportunities, you have the capabilities of monitoring, as we'll cover later, cameras, hard drives on recorders, and also recorder levels, whether that recorder is online or offline. So starting out, I usually say this to the end, but I always get the question of where do we go to get the dashboard? And so I always pull up the Speco Tech website. And as you'll see here, we have a nice, clean new look. We've made some additions to the website after talking with a lot of dealers out in the field reps. We changed a few things to make it a little bit easier to navigate. But as far as the dashboard goes, you come to Solutions, Secure Guard Dashboard. After this webinar, if you're not currently set up as a dashboard user, you can come select Apply to become a partner. And then it's going to take you to, you fill out this form right here. And then you can also use, how'd you hear about Speco Cloud Secure Guard Dashboard? Just use this webinar as a reference there, and that'll also give you the training that you need to be able to start using the dashboard. So easy way to start getting access. Once you fill that form out, one of our representatives will get back in touch with you pretty quick about it. It's usually the same day or next day. But moving forward, this webinar, once we receive your login information, you'll enter that in the username and password. I will say that as of about a month ago, we made a change to where your username was actually now the username in the account there. Let's see if we've already done. Yep, and Christopher, good question. If anybody has questions during this webinar, feel free to drop them in the chat box. I will get to them as I see them. If not, we'll always cover them at the end. But we'll go ahead and get to Christopher's question now. And is it possible for large companies that have multiple locations or just to dealers? And actually, Christopher, great question. As of right now, it is designed for dealers to have access to. But there is an update coming very, very soon that's going to allow you to be able to create sub-level users for the dashboard. And then you'll be able to go in and make changes to what those sub-level users have access to. So yes, you could set up a large company that's got 8 to 10 sites, give them access to it, and then limit their access and sites that are on your dashboard just to their sites. So great question. I usually get to that a little bit later on, but I like starting off there. All right, so right off the bat, what we want to do is we want to open up the dashboard here, and this is going to be your user interface you're looking at. So obviously the first thing that comes to attention here is sites need attention. And then below that, I'm going to see the site name, the account name, and the account name is what level it's sitting under. I create these sub levels here. So I can first add an account, which would be Sahalski Security. And then once I select it, I can start adding sub levels. I'm sorry, Sahalski Security is going to be my main name. Add account is going to be their commercial, and then you create another one for residential, and then creating sub levels underneath your main accounts here is going to be how you can tailor this to what your needs are. But getting back to the main screen there, obviously, like I said, the dashboard is meant to be able to tell dealers, hey, you're having a problem out in the field, and then we can dive in a little deeper to see what that issue is. So off the bat, I'm seeing here that my house digital turret recorder and my LPR demo site are both offline. So I know that also one way of seeing it here, but you'll notice here that my overall site has a yellow exclamation point, and then I can scroll down, see where the yellow issue is, which is telling me there's an issue within that account. And then I can come down and see what issues that there are with that account. And obviously it's telling me his site offline. So earlier I told you that the healthcare check is going to be able to do a few things. It's going to tell you, is that recorder online or is that recorder offline? It's going to tell you the hard drive status of the hard drives in the recorder, and also has the capabilities of doing camera level health checks as well. So you would not only be notified if a recorder was offline, if there was a hard drive issue, but also you can be notified if there is a camera that is down on a certain system. So the red X's are representing that a site is offline. A exclamation point would represent a possible firmware update that's needed or a issue within a sub account. So very easily, the green check marks tells me that everything I'm looking there is good to go. So that's going to be the overall view of what do we see in the dashboard when we first pull it up, how we're going to navigate some sites. So the first thing we like to start off with is, get rid of this. The first thing that we want to start off with is how do we add sites to the dashboard, since that's obviously the main point of it and the huge point. And you'll see here, these are all my demo sites here. You know, conventionally, without having to memorize IP addresses, making sure that I forwarded ports, making sure that I remember my username and password on all these accounts. Once I add a site to the dashboard, all that is done for you. So as you'll see today, I'll kind of scroll around some different sites as we move through it. But what I want you to really watch is how easily I'm able to pull up one site, switch to the next. And, you know, this is really about the dashboard, but really what the dashboard is for is to be able to access sites, make changes, check on the system, check on that system to be able to make sure that everything is online. So the two ways to add a site, the first one is going to be how to manually add one. So we would go to add site. We would then enter the QR code of that recorder, and we would enter in the username and password. From there, we're going to come on and select whether that's going to be under the commercial or residential. And keep in mind, these are just sub accounts that I created. So whatever your sub account's name were, that's what's going to actually be showing up here for you. So some important things to remember is that with the dashboard, we have to make sure that we're running the NAT 2.0 server from the recorder and then also selected in the dashboard itself. This is what's going to give you a seamless integration into the dashboard and allow you full functions of the dashboard through the recorder. So what we would do is hit save, and it's going to pull up that device here on our wherever we saved it to under which parent company. Apologize. Now, what I wanted to say, and this is more of a technician's thing, or just a piece, something to know, is that when we go install a recorder out in the field, and I've done this recorder here specifically for this purpose, you'll notice that when I installed this device by default, it pulled up as device name. Now, all the other locations here are Herbal Care Plus. I have the right names for those devices. So in all my trainings, I make sure that when you're installing that device, make sure that you're naming that device what you want to be named through the dashboard, because whatever it is named will be what comes through. So by default, device name is a name, but on all these other locations, I've actually named them in the recorder prior to adding them to the dashboard. So keep in mind that if you want it to be named what you want it, make sure that it's a common practice for those technicians to be naming the devices when they go out in the field. And the other way to do it would be to connect this device to the dashboard, which I'll show you shortly. Go into the settings, change the name, delete device, and then re-add the device. And that's how you can get the name that populate if a technician didn't do it on site. So that's the first way. That's the manual way to be able to add a device to the dashboard. The second way is to be able to come to installers here. And so we have our SecureGuard app on the marketplace. We have our SecureGuard app on the marketplace. You would download the SecureGuard app. There is a login feature on the app. So you would then create a username and password through the dashboard, and then allow that technician to log in to the SecureGuard app using the username and password that's created here. When we do that, it allows them to be able to scan the QR code, and then that QR code will then pop into, or I'm sorry, once you scan that QR code, then that device is going to pop into your dashboard. Now, when it pops in, it won't be associated with the sub account. It'll be listed below. So once we select that device, we would need to come into that recorder, go to edit site, and then locate it, move it to where we wanted it to be. Get out of that. So again, we've covered what the overview is on the GUI. We've covered how to manually add a site. We have covered how to add an installer so that the installers can add a site in the field. We've talked about adding accounts, which would be commercial, residential. Now we're also going to talk about some different things we have over here. So we have a view log. That's going to give us all of the logged information of what happened in the dashboard directly. So if you're wanting to see when changes were made, who made those changes, you could do so by searching the log. And then if you wanted to export it, you could also export that as well. So site info, site is going to be what everybody wanted. You know, like I said previously, if I had 9, 10 different demo sites, I was going to have to remember those QR codes. I was going to be always making sure the IP addresses didn't change. But now the dashboard is going to save all of the devices that I add to the dashboard for me. So you'll see here that I'm seeing the account name that it falls under, the site name. And this is why I'm saying it's important to name the devices, because it's going to be difficult to distinguish, you know, a location from device name. So that's why it's always important to name your devices. And then it's going to give me the QR code for that device. I can also export this if I choose to. But if I wanted to, I can always come directly in and click on that device. And it's going to be just like clicking on the device over here on the dashboard. So as you'll see, I have all green check marks for that device. So it's giving me the model number, the type, NVR, DVR. It's giving me the QR code for the recorder, the name that it was programmed into the recorder during the install. And then also, more importantly, the firmware update that recorder is running. So if I needed a firmware update on this recorder, I would see a yellow exclamation point here, and then I could toggle over on that, and it's going to tell me what that firmware update is going to do for that recorder. So when I'm in this recorder here through the dashboard, I've got a lot of options. And this is what we're going to really start diving in deep and saying, okay, what can we do from a recorder from the dashboard? You know, what is valuable? What's going to help me not roll a truck? Because ultimately, what we're trying to do with the dashboard is to limit the runs that you need to make out in the field. You know, we've discussed and discussed and discussed, and we constantly, every dealer has the same response. I need to find ways to stop rolling trucks for common issues. I need to find a way to be able to synchronize all my locations and not have to keep track of IP addresses, QR codes. But more importantly, I don't want to pay licensing for what I'm using to manage the dashboard. You know, the dashboard is very, very affordable. It's $1 a recorder per month. So it's very important to understand that that is affordable for you, but also there's a lot of RMR opportunity there. You know, average cost on what we're seeing for this is around $20 a recorder. You know, if you add the a la carte option, since we told you that there's numerous ways to be able to check in on those sites. So a big push is the a la carte. What would you like me to watch out for you for your camera system? You know, to tell if your recorder goes offline or online, $20 a month. You know, that's easily paid by a customer. The capabilities of saying, if my hard drives go bad or I have a hard drive problem, we will let you know. That's an extra $5 a month. So we're up to $25 a month. Still reasonable for the end user, but also with what it's costing you, that's a lot of markup in there for you and to add that additional form of RMR. Now, where the fun really begins is that your larger commercial customers or just residential customers that want that peace of mind to say that if anything happens with my camera system, I want to be notified. We also have the capabilities of doing camera level healthcare checks. So as you'll see here, I have 15 cameras all online. Now I can come in and set this up to be notified if a camera goes down. And what it's going to do is very similar to that exclamation point. If I have a camera it's going to show me there's a camera offline. Now, this is not turned on by default. So to turn this on by default, there's a couple steps that need to be taken. And I always refer to the user manual. We do a fabulous job. Kudos to our marketing team. They do a fabulous job of not only creating manuals that are easily legible, but you also have You also have screenshots of every single thing that we're discussing in the dashboard. So if you have questions, you're not having to read and translate that into what does it really mean. You're able to see exactly on the screen what you're doing and where you're doing it at. So to the point of health status and for sublevels and sites. So if you want to set up camera level healthcare checks on the dashboard, we do need to do that through the recorder itself. And so page 60 through about 68 are going to take you through the steps of setting up the SMTP server in the recorder and give you all the information that you need to program into it. So that way that your reports will report out to the dashboard. So again, if you want to do camera level healthcare checks, which is giving you camera level checks on all the cameras that are attached to that recorder, Speco cameras, Speco recorders, you do need to go through and set up the SMTP server in the recorder. And that is done through getting into the user manual and then turning to page 60 through about 68 and following those steps. First time might take you 5 or 6 minutes. Second time will take you 2 minutes. So it's one of those things that the first time you do it, it's a little learning curve. But again, if you follow these screenshots step by step and we're explaining to you exactly what to do, it's going to take you about 5 or 8 minutes to set that up for the first time. And if you have any questions or you're having issues setting that up, highly recommend reaching out to myself, Tim O'Brien, which we will talk about some resources at the end of this webinar that will give you access to people like myself, Tim O'Brien, Justin Taylor. So we are also there on top of tech support to help you guide through any hiccups you might run into. So again, we covered the healthcare checks of the site that is going to show us whether that device is online or offline. That's what we're seeing here by the green check mark. It's going to tell us if we need a firmware update available or if there's one available. It's also going to tell us the status of the recorders. And it's also going to have the capabilities of doing camera level health checks as well. So just like we showed you the site log up top here, we also have a site log for that site. And by searching, it's going to give us all of the site information of the recorder itself. As you'll see here that we're seeing any of the parameter alarms or any content that happened in the recorder is going to show up, and we can take different steps to be able to minimize what types of log changes that we're looking for. So add users. Add users is a fabulous function because we all know that with high turnover locations, whether that be restaurants, whether that be gas stations, we're always needing to add users or high manager turnover. We can do so by just putting in a new username, giving that person a password. Make sure that the active bar is slid over to the happy face and the green background. We then save that. And then you'll notice now if I go into that site, you will now see that I added Brandon into that user base. Now it's not going to give them admin credentials. It's going to give them advanced user credentials. So if you wanted to change the advanced user settings in the recorder so that by default, the users that were added would have certain criteria, then you can do so in the recorder itself. And we could always do that by connecting to the recorder, changing those functions of that user level, which we'll get into the recorder here in a few minutes. We also have the capabilities of clicking on the edit site, which is going to give us the site information. This is the nuts and bolts of this recorder, which is telling us the QR code, the server port it's using. Obviously, we'd already entered in the username and password, MAC address, model number. And, this is here also for your use, but what I always like to say is the dashboard is full of resources so that we can come in and know more about the system. If we do have to roll a truck out, I'm able to come in and tell you the exact recorder that's in there. I can tell you each camera. If I have a camera that's out, I already know the model number of that camera before I even go out. and that's all done through the health checks and going into the, go right back here. That's going to be all done under the healthcare, like we showed you earlier. But again, another tool to say before Mr. Technician, Mrs. Technician goes out, this camera is the 05 LT1. Here's the local IP address. You can give that technician information prior to even going out. Let's see if we have a question here. Can this be set up remotely? So hopefully I can answer this in two different ways. You can, like the technician, can do the dashboard, add the dashboard to the site. But I can, if I took out my mobile phone, opened up my toolbar or my web address, and I just typed in speco-cloud, it is going to come up on my mobile browser as well too. So I can come in and add a device manually from my phone or from an iPad. So hopefully that answered that question. If not, just drop back in the chat box a little bit more description if I didn't answer your question. So one of the neat functions of the dashboard too is the capabilities of manipulating the AI functions from the camera through the recorder. So you'll see here we have line crossing, facial recognition, license plate recognition, and intrusion. So if I select one of them, it's going to show me all of the cameras that are on this system that either are capable of running line crossing and or which cameras have those functions turned on. So you'll see here that these are all the cameras that are on the system that are capable, that have line crossing available. Now, none of these are turned on, obviously, but if I scroll down, I can see here that the lobby overview 2 camera is online and it is running line crossing. So if I wanted to turn that off, all I have to do is toggle that over to the left, and you'll see here that that is now off. Now, why is this important, or what is this used for? This gives you another point to leverage our analytics, which are built into the camera and no licensing fees applied. So not everybody comes in and says, hey, the analytics, it might take 30, 45 seconds to program, but that's on you. You're not getting paid for the amount of time it takes you. You're getting paid for what you've learned to do. So what we're seeing a lot of dealers do is to be able to come in and say, okay, if you want me to manage your analytics or you want me to manage your cameras, that's included in the packet of turning on and off your analytics. So if you want to see who came into your driveway today, it's an extra $2 a month to have people and vehicle detection turned on. Or another big one I've seen is you'll see here that, our LPR camera is priced pretty close to a normal 2 megapixel, 4 megapixel camera. There's no AI on this camera. But you can even install AI cameras and then charge for the license or charge for the use of that LPR camera. So even though we don't have any throughput licensing to you, that doesn't mean that you can't push that licensing fee on other people, but not so much a licensing fee, but be able to push a maintenance and the programming of those analytics. So how you do it, you can get creative. I've seen all different ways, but what the dashboard allows you to do is to be able to come in and say, okay, I want to turn on that analytics of that camera that I might have had turned off. Or if a customer wants to discontinue an analytic, you can log on to see which cameras are capable and turn it back off. So I've also seen one dealer that turned everything on for the first 30 days. And if they wanted to add the analytic package after that, it was an extra $5 a month. So, how you choose to use it and sell it is up to you. All we can do is kind of tell you what other people are doing across the nation, what we've seen works and what doesn't. So that's going to be the AI functions. So again, we've covered the site log, which tells us the site of the recorder information. We've been able to add users directly through the dashboard to the recorder. We can delete a site. We can edit a site. We have the capabilities of turning on and off AI functions. We have went over the healthcare check that is going to tell us the recorder online status, the hard drive status, and the camera level status. Now, particularly my favorite is going to be, let me find the right one to connect into. So we have this connect feature, and the connect is going to work for multiple ways to be able to make your life a little easier. So first off, if I wanted to select, I'm going to select this particular demo site just because I know that it's a plug and play recorder. And with network cameras, we always have, I don't ever say that. network problems, network lockups happen. You know, there might be a camera that we are working with that is not, it's just, I need to power cycle that camera. You'll see here. So I'm going to connect to this site because it's also a plug and play unit. So anytime we have a network problem, if we want to power cycle a port, we can select the site, go to connect. And this is not so much a feature of the dashboard, but a feature of Speco recorders, is that we have the capabilities of manually and remotely power cycling certain ports on the recorder or power cycling all the ports on the recorder. So let me let this load up. This should take us to our headquarters in Long Island. There we go. So now if we go into settings, so again, I was giving you kind of an example there. We have this site and I'm having some issues with cameras, or if I'm having an issue with a camera and before I roll a truck out, I want to power cycle that camera to see if it's either something I can just quickly fix or if I need to actually send somebody out. So you'll notice here that device name. Before I get into the PoE settings, I talked quite a bit earlier about changing the device name. And this is where you do that at settings, general settings on the front page, device settings right here. So when I'm naming devices to go into the dashboard, it is very important to name them in the recorder right here. But getting back to what we're talking about, you'll notice here under PoE settings, I have the capabilities. I'm seeing here to the right, my current power draw of all the cameras from the back of the box. But I'm also able to come in here and turn off one of these ports. See if I've got, there we go. So you'll notice here that my power consumption will now drop down to 0. I've turned off that port. So I have remotely logged into the dashboard, connected to this device, and within about 30 seconds later, I'm able to power cycle that camera. So the previous way to do this would have been to call that customer, try to talk them through it, or to roll the truck out and spend, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours between drive time and to go out and power cycle a device. So we also have the capabilities of power cycling all of the ports on the recorder, but also doing a reboot to that recorder if we feel that we need to reboot the recorder itself too. Now again, so to circle up and circle back through the connect feature, it is going to utilize our connect.specotech.cloud portal, which those that aren't familiar with it, we can go to connect.specotech.cloud and enter in the QR code number of the recorder, username and password, and that's going to get us into our recorders remotely. So as you'll see here, just like I was using the connect.specotech.cloud portal, I have full access into the recorder through the connect feature of the dashboard. And by full use, I have capabilities of using things like my intelligent analysis to find out what people, what faces, what people, what human bodies, what vehicles, and then a combination. So I have full user access into the things that make Speco with our analytics. And obviously this location had none. Now, something I also want to take a moment to kind of drop in is that if you're not familiar with it yet, we did release attributes into our 1.47 version firmware. It is a beta version, but we do have the capabilities of adding to your search criteria based off of color, type, and certain other search metrics. And then also on the human body, we have the capabilities of doing certain metrics as far as gender, age, mask, hat, glasses, and certain other matrices you can select there to help increase the accuracy of your search. Now, keep in mind, we did release that as a beta version, so there are some firmware updates to cameras and some more development coming to help increase the accuracy of that. But again, we wanted to get it in your hands so that way everything we do as far as the attributes, searching for people, searching for human bodies, searching for vehicles, all this is to be able to take what used to be a very cumbersome recording process and search process and making it a whole lot simpler for you or the end user to find out what you're looking for. And to kind of demo that, I would need to hop into another recorder. But again, so as I'm getting into the recording here, I want to kind of circle back and just see if we have any questions first. We've already answered that one. If anybody has any questions that's on this webinar, feel free to drop them in the chat box as we go. This will be a pretty quick webinar today, so we definitely have some time for any kind of questions and answers. So I want to connect to this recorder here. This was an N32, so I used the other one strictly for the plug and play features. But why the dashboard too is if we're doing search criteria, if we're wanting to search, you know, one thing I can't harp on enough is how easy we make searching. We use multiple layers of recording, which include scheduled recording, which is by default 24/7 recording. We have motion recording, AI recording, sensor recording, and also manual recording. The ability to select your start time, end time, and then select certain cameras. So, you know, what makes it very easy that I love is I can select the amount of cameras I want. I can select the time period that I want. And the name of the game here is to be able to try to do as much as I can to limit what I want. So for me, these are particular outside cameras that are running analytics during closed schedules. So I know that I shouldn't have a whole lot of motion events. I'm not really concerned about scheduled recording. So if I'm previewing my outside cameras, I know that I don't want to see any motion during my playback. I don't want to see scheduled recording, even though I have it in case I miss something. I don't want to see scheduled. I don't want to see anything except for AI. And you'll see here, if I search this, I have the capabilities of doing a time search, event search. But again, I just limited probably, 9 days worth of recording. And by selecting certain search criterias, I was able to take this down into 50 total AI events based off of the time, end time, the duration. So again, if I were to select one of these, it would make it very easy for me to figure out which one that I'm looking for. And this one was when the alarm went off, the police were dispatched. But as you can tell is that when I'm searching through these, I'm not having to see any motion events. I'm seeing exactly what happened when it happened. And as you can see here, the cop's coming up saying, all right, that's the digital deterrent camera going off, which is what I'm going to lead you into next. I'm going to do a few product highlights since we have a little bit more time here. But again, so by utilizing not only our dashboard, by using the dashboard to get into the recorders, and just kind of knowing how to search, you know, how to filter these different things out, you know, it makes it to where what used to be a cumbersome process has now become very easy. And easy means saving you time, saving you money. Let's see if this is particularly the one I'm wanting. Nope. I had one clip that I thought I'd share. All right, so what we're going to do now is let's see if we have any questions and answers. Nope. We've got a pretty big crowd today, 24 people. I do appreciate you hopping in today and spending your time with me. So again, if you want to know more about what functions our recorders do, I want to take a second now to go to the website again and show you some resources for how you can watch more of these webinars, how you can learn more about our products. So if you go to specotech.com, there's a few different outlets to be able to learn more, further education. If you go to view our previously recorded webinars, enter your information here. I'm just going to fill this out, hit submit. You will first see my face there. So there you go. I don't use video a whole lot, but there I am. You'll come down and you'll notice that we have these same type of webinars. There's no PowerPoints, you know, for facial detection and recognition. We're diving directly into a recorder. We're going through every step of the process on how to turn on facial recognition, how to turn on facial detection, and then how to use those. Now, we also do some stuff for sales engineering that is more designed for technicians out in the field. And again, installer special, speeding up installs. This is designed for installers that's going through our process of opening up a recorder out of the box. But more to anybody wanting to know about more knowledge, anything about our advanced analytics, the dashboard, the cloud solutions, using the mobile app like a pro, it's probably the number one that I send out. And you can come in here and click share. You can share this with an end user too that's wanting training on the app. A big one is our license plate recognition, our LPR camera. Again, not everybody has the time to hop on these once a week or on their time, so we have put them out there for your time. A big one that I'm going to recommend watching is going to be this installer checklist here. This installer checklist is really designed for technicians out in the field. So everybody to kind of, the one thing that we can do to make our installations more streamlined, more scalable, and to reduce our callback, or to make sure our customers are more satisfied. We have created this Speco's best practices recorder checklist, and it just goes through the top 20 things that you need to do in a recorder, including demoing the app to the customer, finding out how are they going to be logging on remotely. And then once we choose to download that, let's also demo that. But this webinar right here covers going through all of those steps one by one. So it's a great thing. It's about 45 minutes long. Highly recommend getting your technicians on or having them watch that. And if you want a copy of this, what we've been doing, if anybody wants a copy of that checklist, just drop your email into the chat box, and I will send this out to everybody that put their email into the chat box after this is over with. All right, so again, there's access control on here, facial recognition, pretty much anything your little heart could desire on Speco products. I'm going to show a few products here. That's going to be our DD1 camera, DD2 camera. I'll kind of show the bridge. But again, when I was showing these videos here, and not that one, but when I was showing these videos that had the police officers in there, and they came up and they said, okay, they looked up at the camera, that's going to be utilizing the DD1 and DD2 camera. And what those cameras do for us, let me pull those up. So the DD1 camera and DD2 camera is part of our digital deterrent line. Everybody's probably familiar with our digital deterrent turret, our digital deterrent bullet, but we have also added to it the DD1 and the DD2, which I'll pull up the DD2 in 1 second. The DD1 is going to utilize a speaker strobe, and it's also going to be only going to take a single Cat5 or Cat6. So with a single cable going to it, we have the capabilities of using our analytics. And then the analytics can then trigger that speaker strobe to audible message, you're trespassing on private property, and it can be heard, up to 200 or 300 feet away. We can also have the capabilities of daisy chaining these. So if one were to go off, 4, 8, 12, 16 of them can go off all at one time. And all that's covered in that training of the DD1, DD2. The other camera here that I have is going to be showing you the DD2 camera here. The DD2 camera is going to be very similar to the DD1, except it actually has a built-in floodlight with an alert box or siren inside of it. So not only do we have the light come on, but a siren go off. All this is programmed using our analytics, and then just taking that analytic trigger and having it trigger the DD1, DD2, or both of them if you choose so. So these are two really hot new products that have come out. Highly recommend checking them out. The third product I want to show you is going to be our SecureGuard Bridge and our SecureGuard Bridge 1. So our SecureGuard Bridge is running our VMS platform, which is our server-based platform, but all that's packed into a micro PC. So the SecureGuard Bridge has the capabilities of, again, running the VMS platform. So we can talk to multi-clients with this. We can integrate access control. We can integrate smart things. We can integrate lots of different things into the bridge, but more importantly, allows us to be able to bridge over into a cloud connection as well. So you'll notice that there's a SecureGuard Bridge and a SecureGuard Bridge 1. The SecureGuard Bridge 1 comes with 1 terabyte of storage in it, because it's running our VMS platform. That also means that it can accept cameras just like one of our VMS servers. So camera number is limited. If you want more information about the SecureGuard Bridge, reach out to me or reach out to one of your sales reps. See what kind of questions we have here. What series cameras and NVRs do you recommend? There seems to be many different series to choose from. Some cameras do not work with some recorders. Ken, very good question. And I think that's probably a later, really in depth, but for me, I'll just kind of tell you I'll tell you some differences right off the bat that are going to be easy to recognize later on. So the biggest recorders are going to be your in-series recorders. It's going to be your NRE, your NRL, and then your NRN. So your NRN, your NRL are going to be your NDA compliant recorders. They're not going to have your facial recognition included. Your NRE recorders is going to be pretty much our flagship recorder. It's going to have the facial recognition included, but it is not NDA compatible at the moment. We are working to get that updated, and it will come so pretty soon in the near future. Roadmap will be more on the engineering side of it, so don't hold me to anything. But the in-series recorder, NRE, is going to be what I'm always going to recommend if that project is not NDA compliant mandated. And the reason why is because you have all the most robust options: facial recognition, facial detection, the ability to track based off facial recognition, but also it is what gives you the most options as far as with the dashboard, remoting into it. What options do you have? So the NRE is going to be probably what I would steer 90% of people in. But again, it's really the main 3 recorders are going to be our NRN, NRL, and then the NRE that we'll cover today. So we'll be happy to give you a breakdown on that. And that's something I'll get with marketing and see if we could release just a breakdown of the difference in recorders. All right, so we've got a few here emails. I'll send those out as soon as we finish this webinar. So again, we covered the dashboard today. We covered a couple new hot items that are coming into the lineup. I don't want to take any more of anybody's time. I do appreciate you hopping on today, and we will see you. For those that are not already signed up for it, we do have the MX at 2 p.m. tomorrow. If you're not signed up for that through our webinar, be sure to hop on to the Learning Center event calendar. And you'll notice for those that are looking for what are we covering next week, what are we covering right here, Speco Technologies and MX joint presentation. And then we also have the access control. So tomorrow's going to be a packed day full of webinars. For those that aren't familiar, MX is going to be our integrated video verification platform. We're going to be covering what MX does, what MX and Speco does, and it's going to be it's going to be a live demo too. So hop on if you're interested in finding more about video verification and the benefits of it. And then at 4 p.m., Brandon Marker is our new product manager for access control. Him and I will be leading the access control overview. And this is going to be a big dive into access control, integrating video and access control. What does that look like through a mobile app? So tomorrow we're going to have a jam-packed full of webinars. Hop on. If you're not signed up, you can do so by clicking here, and that'll get you registered. So again, that's all I had for everybody today. I'll make sure that I send that out. If anybody has any questions, just drop them in the Q&A or the chat box, and I'll be on here for about 10 more minutes to answer them. We appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you.